Hey guys, welcome back to Total Tactics Football. It's Fran here, and we'll kind of be unveiling our Game Week 3 team selection reveal. Just to get it out of the way, really, I'm just going to show you the full team so that there's no clickbait, really. The full team, of course, incorporates two transfers, which I used. So obviously, I was saving a transfer in the previous week, and to be honest, it really didn't work out. I did expect Dean to have a poor week versus Leeds, but not so poor in the fact that he actually got 0 points. And ultimately, I kind of wanted to gamble the fact that he could have an attacking return, and I was watching the Everton game and still feel that there are basically phases in the game where Benitez prefers that Dean stays back, and I feel like if he is kind of tasked to do that in specific games, I think there's no real value in terms of Dean when you can actually look across the league and suggest that there are similar players at a cheaper price who can do similar things in terms of their ability to create in terms of open play, but are more consistent in that kind of attacking output due to the team structure that they have, and that would be Coufal, and then someone else who is playing in a much more defensive structure but also has the license to go forward, such as Reguilon. And for me, I was tinkering between both Reguilon and Coufal for a long time. I was also thinking about getting both of them and getting a 4.5, but I'll discuss that later and explain why I went for Livramento. But to kind of explain why I went for Reguilon first, I think the fact that I really think that Watford and Crystal Palace are very poor sides in terms of creating chances. I thought they were quite lucky to face Aston Villa on an exceptionally bad day, especially with Matt Targett playing so poorly. And also Aston Villa kind of changing their tactical shape and style and allowing for so much opportunities for Watford to kind of bombard themselves against the Aston Villa defense. And so for that reason, I think right now, looking at things, Reguilon has pretty much two perfect fixtures to deal with, where I don't think his team is going to be dealing with as many shots as he did when he was facing Man City and Wolves, who seem to be obviously two of the more kind of lethal, I think, shot creating sides right now in the league. I would say Wolves maybe not lethal, but definitely one of the kind of key shot creators in the league. And right now, I think with Reguilon, you have the opportunity for him to push forward in the system, because when you watch the Wolves fixture on the weekend, you'll see that Reguilon was actually the one moving forwards, and Tanganga was probably playing right centre back. That, in part, could have been a tactical amendment to deal with the fact that Wolves themselves are playing three at the back. But that is what interests me about Reguilon. He clearly has the license to go forward, and if you actually watch the game as well, and the penalty that was drawn by Dele Alli, that was actually assisted by Reguilon. So I think there's clear potential for Reguilon to have attacking forays versus weaker sides, and I think the team will overall benefit from the Kane news, which I'll also expand upon in terms of how I feel about my captaincy. In terms of why I've not gone for Coufal, I think the truth really is just the simple fact that I think West Ham are almost too poor a side right now in terms of their defense. I think they clearly do miss one or even two centre-backs, and there's just not enough depth in the team, in my opinion, for them to, play a kind of a sustained like 80 to 90 minutes of like footballing excellence. We saw, them concede to a 10-man Leicester. We saw them concede to Newcastle as well early on in the game. And whilst I think they can actually outscore pretty much most of the teams in the Premier League right now, with exception to some of the top ones, they're pretty much open to giving away their clean sheet every match if it means that they will overwhelm the opposing team in terms of score. And I think that's kind of a reality that we have to face right now, which means that I think Reguilon is still a more interesting option. And ultimately, the fact that he was about to hit a price rise pretty much sealed in my decision. In terms of Livramento and Duffy, this was a very tough decision as well for me, because I think with Livramento and Duffy, you're dealing with, once again, two juxtaposing players. One a player who's an aerial threat, a centre-back pretty much, and one who plays in a system that will probably allow him to get more short-term points, in the sense that he will probably benefit from clean sheets. The thing, of course, that most people will be dealing with is the fact that Sanchez belongs on their teams, and you might not necessarily want to double up on Brighton every week, which is part of the issue, and also the fact that Duffy had moved to 4.1 lately. So for me, even though I think Duffy is a better short-term solution, I see Livramento as a long-term enabler that I'd really like to have in my team. And, for that reason, he found a spot in my team, and I kind of wanted to bank on the additional 0.1 that would probably help in terms of me being able to kind of access Ings and then also keep what should be 0.5 in the bank, provided that DCL doesn't kind of price rise once again before the end of the week, or rather before the deadline. And that is kind of what interests me right now. I want to have that kind of money to move into maybe a 4.5 defender if I feel like I want to stick in the 4-4-2 structure. And if I want to stick at, or move away from the 3-5-2 structure, then I want to kind of free up as much money as possible to allow for that formation change to happen. And this would obviously happen after Son's really kind of nice game weeks. So that's how I see things in terms of Duffy rather. But in terms of Livramento, I think the reason why I've gone for him is simply the fact that he has a good select amount of fixtures, I think, in terms of Newcastle being first, and then the second fixture being, I think, West Ham United. So obviously that's a game where, whilst I don't expect him to keep a clean sheet whatsoever, he has the opportunity to actually contribute, I think, on the counter-attacking end. And I really do see his kind of medium-term transformation to kind of replacing Walcott as a real possibility. We actually saw that it kind of come to light when Hassan Hutel had substituted Walcott on the weekend at 45 minutes. And we saw a defender come in for Walcott and Livramento effectively play right wing back / right wing for the game. And obviously he was probably Southampton's man of the match in that game. And for that reason, I feel like, you know, his true attacking prowess will be flexed versus some of the weaker teams, or at least the weaker defensive teams in the league. So you have at least 2 game weeks of Livramento to potentially score a decent amount of points within the structure. And I'll also be kind of looking towards the possibility, as I said, of going for a 4.5 Wolves defender in the subsequent week. Because if I want to stick it within the 4-4-2 and I see it as a possibility, then clearly a player like Marcel and Cody is someone who is kind of on my transfer watch list right now. And I'll be looking at maybe a hidden gem video as well right now, for the next week rather, to kind of encapsulate that. In terms of my captaincy pick, it was quite simple because I think Son is a fantastic option, and you can kind of see that I built my team to kind of get or to have Son in terms of game weeks 3 and 4 and to capitalize on that. Obviously, last week wasn't a fantastic game. Dele Alli had effectively taken the penalty that I thought was going to be Hungman's Son's, and that, of course, was a bit of a dampener in my thoughts, and coupled with the fact that he had a knock and was also substituted in 17 minutes with very minimal touches as a striker, I thought that the Son pick would kind of not pan out as much as I would have liked it to be. But with Kane and finally announcing that he would stay in Tottenham, at least for the immediate future, I imagine that probably means until January, if you kind of read his tweet and read between the lines. I think Son's a fantastic option now, with Kane kind of taking away some space and some of the, I think, defensive presence that he has to deal with, especially if he has to play back to goal or simply has to deal with a low block. And I think Son will definitely thrive a little bit more in terms of playing versus Watford and Crystal Palace, playing as a left winger. And I think he will still get those kind of efficient shots on target, because I know the statistics definitely do favor Son in terms of creating shots when he's without Kane. But I feel like what last season showed is that this Tottenham side is much more complete, and even Son as well as a player in terms of assists as well when Kane is in the team, and I really do like that. So I'm pretty happy about that news, and it was a very tight call as a result of that between him and Antonio. But I think you also can't reject the fact that Antonio simply is in the form of his life. They've pretty much, I think, I would say, crushed the last 2 kind of fixtures that they've had due to the amount of chances that they're building as a side in terms of West Ham. They're clearly right now a very efficient counter-attacking side. They're not necessarily a purely counter-attacking side. They don't play in a low block or anything of the sort. They're just simply a side that looks to break teams as soon as possible and actually kind of has very quick, I think, transition in terms of phases from defense to attack, where clearly fullbacks will kind of look to have themselves wide and kind of distribute along a diagonal to someone like Benrahma, who stays quite far forward. And Antonio is also a very complete forward in the sense that he can deal with a wide variety of balls sent to him. And for that reason, I think, you know, with the fixture being so good in terms of Crystal Palace, I think Antonio is a fantastic option. I will say Crystal Palace's defense haven't actually looked as poor as people thought. I think Chelsea pretty much scored as much goals as they really should have versus Crystal Palace. And I think that was more of a look towards how good Chelsea was in that game and how clinical they were, as opposed to how poor Crystal Palace were as a team. Of course, Chelsea were missing Lukaku in that game, and I think a few other big hitters in terms of Reece James, for example, on the right-hand side. But simply put, I think you have the opportunity here to really have a fantastic kind of Antonio game week, and I wouldn't really miss it out given the fact that he is in this kind of red-hot form. So Antonio becomes my captain for this week. And that's really it for this video. I know all of you guys are going to have slightly different teams. I think for me, my priority was to kind of fix my defensive situation because Omo Bamidele, clearly had an unexpected injury that I didn't really foresee in the first game week. That was my mistake. I really should have changed him towards either Livramento or Duffy at the time, or even a Marty at least for just one game week. But that's how things are really. I'm pretty happy with the team so far. I think next week is going to be a question of whether I move into Dominic Calvert-Lewin, or whether I kind of move into someone like Jimenez as well to capitalize on Wolves, or even go for a Wolves defender, and then maybe take a hit as well. But that's how things are for my team. I hope you guys are having a wonderful week, and I'll see you guys shortly, I think, in a deadline stream or in a recap of the top performers kind of video, which should be releasing tomorrow. So take care, guys. Thank you.